Hi guys, you're welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Amaka and this is Lizama Stitches. This is a continuation of our previous tutorial on how to make corsets with keyhole neckline. Now I'm going to leave the link of that video in the description box below so that you can check it out later. If you're yet to subscribe to this channel, please click on the subscribe button and also turn on the notification bell so that you'll be notified whenever I upload new videos. So let's get started. So this is my fabric. I've got my fabric now. I have my lining and the main fabric here, and I have two of these, one of these. This was cut on fold. These two of these, one of these. It was cut on fold. I have two of these and two of these, and I've also added seam allowance. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to iron interfacing on the fabric. Then I'll show you how to join it. I've ironed interfacing on my fabric. This is the main fabric. Now I'm using wadding for my cup.
Now I used my pattern paper to cut out my wadding just the way it is. I didn't add seam allowance on the wadding when I was cutting. I only added seam allowance on the fabric.
Now I also have the same thing here. So what I'm using for this tutorial is wadding. But if you want to learn how to use already made bra cup, I have a tutorial on how to do that. I'm going to leave the link of that video in the description box below so that you can check it out later. That is a tutorial on how to make corset with yoke. What I used there was ready-made bra cup. I'm going to start by, I'm going to place this way, and I'll sew with ½ inch seam allowance. And I'll also place this, and I'll sew with ½ inch seam allowance. Now for this one, I'm going to place this way, and I'll sew with ½ inch seam allowance. So now for this one, I'm going to do the same thing here, just like this, and I'll sew with ½ inch seam allowance. So I'm going to do it and show you the outcome. So for this one, I'm going to place it this way. This is the back panel. I'll place it this way, and I'll sew with ½ inch seam allowance. And I'll place this way, and I'll sew with ½ inch seam allowance. So I'm going to do it and show you the outcome. Now the same thing I did here, I'm going to do on the lining. Now this is my yoke, this is the lining, and this is the main fabric. I'm going to place the lining on the main fabric, right side facing right side, and I'll sew. I'm going to start by sewing the neck. When I sew the neck, I'll sew with ½ inch seam allowance, and I'll notch. After notching, I'll put the seam allowance on the lining and top stitch. Then after that, I'll now sew it like this and sew it down. I'm going to do the same thing here. Now for the front, I'm going to sew with ½ inch seam allowance. After sewing, I'll notch. After notching, I'll put the seam allowance on the lining and top stitch. I'm going to sew. Now this is my main fabric and this is my lining. I'm going to place it right side facing right side. So after sewing, I'll now sew here with ½ inch seam allowance. Now after sewing here, I'm going to pull out, I'm going to turn this to the right side from here. I'm going to sew here and I'll sew here. So from this space, I'm going to pull it out and turn it to the right side. So after sewing, now this is what I have. Now I've sewn my cup. You see how my cup is. So this is the cup and this is the front panel. I've joined this part and I ironed it down. I pressed it down. Now I used my tailor's hammer to iron the cup. I'm going to use my bias to create the boning channels. Now I'm going to sew one here, just like this at the middle. I'll sew one here, and I'll sew one here. I'll sew one here, and I'll sew it this way for the cup. Now, after that, after sewing the boning channels, and I'll fix the boning from here. I'm going to fix the boning into the channels. Now this is how I'm going to fix my cup. I'm going to bring my cup. Now this is the midpoint of my cup, and this is the midpoint of my corset. So I'm going to place it this way, and I'll sew. I'm going to sew it to this point, and I'll sew this one from here like this. I'm going to sew to this point. Now I'm placing my cup right side facing right side, right side facing right side before sewing. So after sewing, I'm going to have something like this, and I'm also going to do the same thing here. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to sew this way. So this is how my cup is going to be. The same thing I'm going to do on the main fabric. I'm also going to do on the lining, but I'm not going to sew bias on my lining. But the same way I'm going to join this, fix the cup, that's what I'm going to do on the lining. Now for this, I've sewn this. So this is the wrong side and this is the right side. When I couple this, I'm going to show you how to attach this. I'm going to show you how to attach this to this. I fixed the cup. Now this is the wrong side. You see what I did? Now take note, when I was cutting this wording, I didn't add seam allowance on it. I added seam allowance on my main fabric, but I didn't add seam allowance on the wording. So when you're cutting yours, don't add seam allowance. Now, if you look at this, you see that I've fixed my boning channels. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to fix my boning. I'm going to pass my boning through here. So now this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to fix the boning. I'm going to start my boning into the channel just like this. Now, what I use in doing this is bias. So I'm going to insert my boning like this, and I'll cut it. Now I left allowance. The boning didn't get to this point so that I'll be able to sew it. So I'm going to fix this one. I'm going to show you two methods of fixing your underwire to your corset. Now the first method, all you need to do is to take this to your sewing machine. You see the seam allowance here. You push it down and you top stitch. You sew on the seam allowance. Now when I sew on the seam allowance, I'm going to have hole here, which I'm going to insert the underwire. And I'll do the same thing here. So let me show you the first method. Now I've sewn it. See, I've sewn it. Now I've created a channel for my underwire. I've also created here. So now let me show you how to install it. Now this is my underwire. Now when you look at this underwire, you see that one side is higher than the other side. Now this side is lower than this side. This side is higher than this side. So this part that is lower is the part that is going to be here. The part that is going to be here, while this part will be here. So now let me fix my underwire. So this is what I'm going to do. I'll fix it this way. So I've fixed it. You see? See, I've fixed it. Now see the difference. When you look at this one, you see how this one is. This one, you see how it is. While the one that I've not fixed, see how it is. You see the difference? This one is flat, while this one is now standing. Let me fix the second one. Let me fix this one. So this is the lower part. This is the part that is lower than this side. So I'm going to fix this part is going to be here, while this part will be here. So I'm fixing it this way. So this is it. Now this is the first method. You see, this is the first method. Another way of creating a channel for your underwire is by using bias. Now I'm going to sew this. I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew this bias this way. I'll sew it round. I'm going to sew it two sides, just the way we sew our bias. I'm going to top stitch on this round like this. Now when I do that, I'm going to fix my underwire this way. So let me do it and show you the outcome. So this is the second method. You see that I've sewn my bias. I've created a channel for my underwire. Now let me fix the underwire. Now this is my underwire. This is the lower part, which is supposed to be here, and this is the higher part, which is supposed to be here. So I'm going to fix it this way into the channel. Now you see the difference. See how this one is standing, but see how flat this one is. So let me fix the second one. This is the lower part and this is the higher part. So let me fix it. You see the difference? It's now standing. So this is how to fix your underwire. I've sewn my lining. So I'm going to place this on this, right side facing right side, and I'll sew. I'm going to place it this way and I'll sew. I'll sew with 1/2 inch seam allowance and I'll sew with 1/2 inch seam allowance. After that, after sewing, I'll notch. After notching, I'll put the seam allowance on the lining and top stitch. After that, I'll sew the lower part and I'll sew the side and I'll sew here and I'll stop somewhere here. I'll leave a space here where I'm going to pull out where I'm going to turn this to the right side. This is my back panel. I've fixed the loops. I've sewn the loops and I've also sewn my channel, my boning channels. Now when I turn to the wrong side, this is the wrong side. You see that I've also sewn my boning. Now this boning is Brazilian boning, the sewable boning. That's what I used for this part. I also have the same thing here. So now this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start by fixing my modesty panel. This is my modesty panel. Now I have a tutorial on how to how to cut and sew a modesty panel with loops. I'm going to leave the link of that video in the description box below so that you can check it out later. I don't want this tutorial to be too long, so I'm not going to go into details about this. So now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to bring my, so after sewing this, I'm going to sew this with half inch seam allowance. Now I'm going to bring my yoke and I'm going to place my yoke this way, and I'll sew. I'll move it away from this loops because I'm going to sew this with half inch seam allowance. So I'm going to place it like this and I'll sew. I'm going to place it like this and I'm going to place the lining on top of it. This is my lining and I'm going to sew. Now I'm going to sew this with half inch seam allowance. After sewing with half inch seam allowance, I'll notch. After notching, I'll put the seam allowance on the lining and substitch. Then I'll sew here. I'm going to sew here with half inch seam allowance. I'll sew here with half inch seam allowance. Then I'll sew here with half inch seam allowance and I'll stop here. I'm going to leave a space here where I'm going to use to turn this to the right side. After which I'm going to come back and tidy this up neatly. Now the same way, I'm also going for this one. I'm going to fix my yoke. I'm going to fix my yoke this way. Now take note, I'm placing my yoke right side facing right side. The same way I did this, right side facing right side. My lining is facing this, right side facing right side. And I'm going to place the lining just like this. And I'm going to sew with half inch seam allowance. After sewing with half inch seam allowance, I'll notch. I'm going to push the seam allowance on the lining and substitch. And I'll sew this with half inch seam allowance. Then I'll sew here with half inch seam allowance. Then I'll sew here with half inch seam allowance and I'll stop here. I'll leave a space where I'm going to turn this. I'm going to turn this to the right side, after which I'm going to go back and I'll finish it neatly. So I'm going to do it and show you the outcome. So to fix the yoke, now this is my yoke. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring it. I'm going to place it here just like this and I'll top stitch. I'll place it like this and I'll top stitch. I'll top stitch to this point and I'll do the same thing here. I'll top stitch to this point. Now at times you might have, after sewing, you see that your yoke is excess. All you need to do is just to trim off a little from here. Trim off a little from here and fix it to avoid gaping. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to sew it and show you the outcome. So after sewing, now this is what I have. You see what it looks like. I had to top stitch. Now from the wrong side, see what it looks like. So this is the back. I'll fix the yoke. Now this is I'm going to put a buttonhole here and buttonhole. Now to join the shoulder, I'm going to bring the front panel and I'm going to hold the shoulder. I'm going to bring the shoulder and I'll bring the back panel, bring the front panel and the back panel, and I'm going to join it together this way. Now right side, this is right side facing right side, main fabric to main fabric and lining to lining. And I'll sew with half inch seam allowance. I'm going to sew with half inch seam allowance, sew it to this point. And when I sew it, I'll turn it. And I'm also going to do the same thing here. After that, I'll sew here and I'll sew here. So I'm going to do it and show you the outcome. After sewing, this is what I have. Now this is the right side and this is the wrong side. This is what it looks like. So I'm going to fix the sleeve and wear it on my mannequin. And so that's just it with this tutorial. Now if you found this tutorial helpful, please click on the like button. Share this video with your friends. Share this video in your sewing groups. Subscribe to my channel if you've not done so. Feel free to ask questions. I'll be in the comment section to answer all your questions. We've come to the end of this tutorial. Thanks for watching. See you in my next video. Bye.